Hey guys, guess what? It's the end of the season, and it's time to give out some grades. We are back with another episode of obviously the Caniac Report, and yes, just me, Sam Wallace. So this is the episode where I'll be giving out end of season grades, and it is part one. Part two will obviously come out Friday, but part one is going to be on the goalies and the defensemen. And there is a certain player. I know I talked about him in the last episode, but it seems like there's a whole discussion over Brent Burns. And I'm just like, you know what? I'll go ahead and reiterate my discussion on him because I see on Kane's Twitter specifically, there's a lot of discussion of whether we should keep him or whether we should let him go to free agency. But first things first, we do have a great partnership with SeatGeek. So if you want to get a discount, a little bit of a discount, $20 off, you can use promo code Caniac Reports, all one word. You can use it at your local venue, whether it's a comedy concert or uh, going to anything related to the venue that use a SeatGeek. You can use it. So it is a great resource if you want to try and get some money off of a ticket. Another thing too is we have a link for donations. So if you feel like you want to donate, there is a link to that in both our YouTube description and wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's on Apple or Spotify. So a few things I do want to get to around the NHL. Again, lots of things are happening because we have free agency coming up and obviously the draft. But a few things here. Again, we are slowly giving out trophies, awards to players. And one of them is the Bill Masterton Trophy. For those of you who don't know what the Masterton Trophy is for those who exemplify perseverance and hard work. And it was given to Sean Monahan. And to be honest, I don't blame any player from Columbus getting the Masterton Trophy, considering what they have been through with the whole thing with Gaudreau earlier this past season. So I credit to Sean Monahan. Good for him for getting the Masterton Trophy. And I'm sure he's done lots of other stuff, regardless of what happened with the Gaudreau incident as well. So another thing too is Spencer Carberry wins the Jack Adams Trophy. That does not surprise me at all, honestly, because you look at this Washington team coming into this past season, you might have thought this is an old team. They might have made some good trades, but nobody expected a team like Washington to put up the points that they did this past season. Obviously, the biggest highlight for Washington was Ovechkin hitting and breaking Gretzky's record. So Spencer Carberry, you know what? Congrats to him, and you know what? He has a lot of my respect, especially obviously the Hurricanes knocked out Washington in the second round, but at the end of that round, if you guys didn't know, Carberry had a lot of great comments to say, not just about the organization, but about Rod Brind'Amour. So congrats to him. I think he really does deserve it. Another thing, too, is I want to talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup Finals because currently, as I'm recording this, the series is dead even. One win for both Florida and Edmonton. And I've seen both games mostly to the entirety. And I will say this, it seems like Edmonton is playing a bit of a better game against Florida than they did last year. And you'd expect that considering this is a rematch from last year and Florida won. Do I still think Florida's the better team? I do. But it's interesting how these games have played out. I'm telling you, that second game, it was just crazy. I believe it was Corey Perry that tied the game up with 17 seconds left in the game. Obviously, you had Brad Marchand, who is defying the aging process because he is still playing fantastic. Here's the thing with Brad Marchand. People might not like him, But regardless, I think he is a good player. And he has really shown that in this whole playoff run for Florida. So it's going to be interesting. Edmonton's putting up a very, very good fight. You can tell Florida is doing what they usually do, the hard forechecking system. I know with Edmonton, it seems like a lot of their goals, from my observation, have been coming a lot off the rush and a lot of just circling around Florida. They're not as tough of a forechecking team as Florida is. I mean, I do think another thing too in the playoffs, what you kind of need is some forechecking. Obviously, Florida exemplifies that perfectly, and it's showing how good they are. Honestly, if they win a cup this year, this is I think a dynasty type of team. So it's going to be fun, very, very fun as those games progress. And another thing too, a team that I want to talk about, and that is what things are happening in Dallas. Obviously, you have Peter DeBoer getting fired. He was their head coach. And from what I've heard is obviously he pulled Jake Ottinger in the last game against Edmonton. And I mean, obviously, when it comes to Ottinger, listen, I think he's a very, very good goalie. But I think the biggest thing is how he pulled him. I think it probably would have been better if it was after the period, not during a period. But that's just me. Obviously, the players in Dallas didn't like how he handled the Ottinger situation, and Jim Neal, the general manager. Obviously, it came to the point where it's like, you know what, I'm gonna have to fire you because Pierre DeBoer seems like he lost the room. And for those of you who don't know, players do obviously Hurricane players did have exit interviews, but when Dallas did the exit interviews for the players, that's when Jim Neal kind of found out, yeah, there's a separation there between the coach and the players. So we'll see what Dallas does in their head coaching process. There's quite a few remaining head coaches out there, so I already heard a few names being brought up. A few of those names I'm not really that familiar with, but we'll see what Dallas does. I do think another thing too, obviously they got to get a head coach, but they also need to create cap space and get draft capital. One thing I love about Eratolsky in that trade from Rantanen to Dallas is that he kind of sabotaged Dallas in some way because he basically got picks in 4 straight drafts from which are first round picks, obviously, from Dallas. So from 2026 to like 2029, those picks are gone for Dallas. So I would look for them probably trying to gain some cap space because they only have 5 million, and to regain some draft capital that they lost are now amongst us, the Canes. So you know what? I mean, looking at that Rantanen trade, while I might still be a little bit of a critic, I still think Eratolsky did a pretty good job of trying to recoup the whole Rantanen drama there. So that's kind of it in terms of stuff around the league. There is some now. There's no news when it comes to the Hurricanes, but there are a couple things I do want to talk about because these are kind of what I would call probably rumors. But there is a some of an insider in Chris Johnson, and he talked recently about a couple things that the Hurricanes might be involved in. And there are 2 players I want to talk about. One, Nikolai Ehlers. And Chris Johnson said that if Ehlers did hit the market, then Carolina and Chicago would make sense. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, I'd love to get Ehlers. And another thing, too, that he said is both Chicago and Carolina are expected to make some of the biggest offers money-wise to probably the biggest free agent, if he does hit it, Mitch Marner. So these are 2 players that Carolina probably has an eye on, and it makes sense too. I mean, we talked about the needs in the last episode. Marner and Ehlers certainly does help with those needs. Now, both of them are not centers, so they don't really feel that second center need, but they could fulfill that winger need alongside playing with Sebastian Aho. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, if I had to choose, now, honestly, they could have the cap space to sign both. They could, but I think if they had to choose one or the other, I think honestly, I think both players would fit because Marner, I think he's good defensively. Ellers, I think there's a bit of a two-way game with him too. Marner's definitely going to be more expensive, but I do think Marner is more of a game changer than Ellers. But let's say Hurricanes could not sign Marner and they sign Ellers, I'd be perfectly happy with that. Really would. Ellers is a very, very good forward. I do believe he didn't have the best playoffs with Winnipeg this year. I don't think he did, but you never know. A new team could change things. And obviously, you look at a few players with Florida. I mean, there have been a few players. I would say a good example is Carter Verhaeghe and Gustav Forsling. These were players that were kind of nobodies before they came onto Florida, and now look at how good these players are. Like Gustav Forsling, when I saw him in game 2, he was making superb defensive plays. He really was. So you just never know what happens with a player that comes to a new team. They could gel right away. Obviously, with Brendan Moore's system, it might take some time, but a player like Ellers, player like Marner, I mean, it's it might take some time, but I think if you do sign them, it's gonna pay off. May take 20 games, but it's worth it long term. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting and very, very fun. And that's kind of it. Again, not any Hurricanes news that I have seen recently as I am recording this on a Sunday at 4:20 p.m. So that's pretty much it. And now we're going to get to grading the players. But before we do, let's get to one of our sponsors. The fastest game on ice just hits another gear. Welcome to the Stanley Cup Final, where legends are made and every shift could turn the tide. And now with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can take every slapshot, breakaway, and overtime thriller to the next level. New to betting on the Stanley Cup Final? You're in for an exciting time. Getting started is a breeze. Fire up the DraftKings Sportsbook app, pick your team to win, lock in your wager, and you're off to the races. It's fast, simple, and puts you right in the middle of the action. Here's the kicker. New customers who bet just $5 will score $300 in bonus bets if their wager hits. That's right, turn $5 into a Stanley Cup Final payout. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN. That's promo code THPN to unlock $300 in bonus bets when your $5 bet wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Blue Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Minimum minus 500 odds required. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Copyright 2025 NHL. All right. So, for those of you who are new to this podcast recently, haven't seen a grading episode before, usually what I do with the grades is I do it kind of like the school system. So like an A is excellent and F means that you're failing. And if you've already have been through us, listened to us for quite some time, you are already probably know the rules. So let's get to this. Again, this is just specifically for goalies and defensemen. The next episode will be on forwards because again, Hurricanes have had a lot of players. Now, there is one player I do kind of want to, or probably am going to exempt. And I know he played some playoff games, but he didn't play any regular season games, and that is Alexander Nikishkin. And to me, the reason why, and this is kind of part of the ruling too, the kid has only played 2-3 games. And because of that, I'm not going to grade someone just on 2 or 3 games. When I usually grade a player, it's more in the links of like at least probably 7 games. Can we usually get the gist of how good this player can be? Obviously, I think we've seen potential in Nikishin in a few of these playoff games. Heck, the guy's been thrown in the fire, but he's not on this list because I ain't going to grade him just on a few playoff games. I want to see a full season with Nikishin. So that's the reason why he's not on this list. So the first player first I'm going to get to is going to be Shane Gostisbehere. And to me, this is a player that started out hot right into the season. He was putting up points left and right. And I can tell you this, our best quarterback on the power play is him. He is really, really good um, at being a quarterback on a power play that's kind of gone through its ups and downs throughout the season and sometimes in the playoffs. But Shane Gostisbehere, I think, has been a very, very good quarterback, putting up lots of points on the power play. He's excellent on that. And if you look at his point total, I believe he got a total of 45 points. I am going to look that up real quick here. But Gostisbehere, in the playoffs, he is the highest point scorer in terms of our defensemen. So he got 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points. He was a -9. I do think when the playoffs hit, again, he was still producing points, but there were some, I would say, some defensive miscues with him. But still, Gostisbehere, we know that he's expected to be an offensive defenseman. And heck, there's probably, I would say, a lot more pressure on Gostisbehere just because of the performance Brent has had offensively just dropping off. So Ghost obviously leading the points in terms of defensemen in the playoffs. And in the regular season, 45 points, 7 goals, 38 assists, and a +1. Again, to me, he's doing what is expected him to do, being a good offensive defenseman. And I do think at times in the regular season, I would say more so probably in the regular season than maybe in the playoffs, is that he has been playing pretty good defensively. I think that Ghost Walker pair has been probably the most consistent pair, and I'll get to Walker in a little bit. But Ghost, I give him I don't give him an A, but I give him a B because I think he's been playing pretty good, exceptional offensively. Defensively, he does have his moments, but when offensively, when he's on, he's really, really good. The next player, this is a player that I really like. I think he's the fastest defenseman that we have, and that is Jalen Chatfield. It sucks seeing him get injured in the playoffs. Obviously, I give him the grade of an A, and the reason why is, I would say, probably a huge reason why is because we saw how noticeable of a difference there was in the playoffs with him not on the ice when he was hurt, because there was a difference there. And Chatfield, when he was on the ice, when he was playing good. Obviously, he had a parent Orlov who he had, I would say Orlov had one tough stretch. And in the regular season, and then toward the end of the playoff run, he started to not look good defensively. But Chatfield, I mean, the guy is really amazing. He's kind of, to me, like Slavin but just a better skater. He's just so good defensively with the puck. You're not going to get a lot of offense from him. And I know there might be some people that say, "Hey, there's some offense there." Um, Honestly, I don't see it. Now, regular season, if you guys want to know his point totals, 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points. Again, he doesn't get lots of points, but that's the expectation of him is that he's a very, very good defensive defenseman. And because of that, I give him an A because of how well he defends. And just in that playoffs, like there's a huge difference with him not on the ice. So that's why I give him an A. The next player is Scott Morrow. And Scott Morrow, uh, this was to me just a little bit tough because I thought in the regular season we saw glimpses of how good he can be. He's labeled obviously as an offensive defenseman. He really is. But I think Scott Morrow obviously is a player that still needs time to develop. I think all of us can agree on that. I give him a C. I think I'm probably being, to me, just a little bit generous there, just because, I mean, again, he was put into the fire just like Nikishin on D in the playoffs. He was. But there were a couple of moments. I like his very first game in the playoffs. It was bad. And I believe it was the game. Well, I I don't know if that was his first game, but I'm talking about the game against Florida where he was responsible for at least probably 3 of those goals. Like he was bad, bad. But Scott Morrow, I mean, you know what? He needs some time to develop, and you know what? That's fine. Defensemen usually do take a little bit longer to develop, and you never know. Scott Morrow, I think his potential, even though obviously he's not there yet, I think his potential is a good offensive defenseman on a second power play unit. I don't know if I would label him as a top 4 potential. I do think his potential is a full-time NHLer though. So I do give him a C. At times I did think of giving him a D though. The next player is a goalie, and that is Kachekov. And boy, I mean, coming into this season, I mean, there was a strong expectation of Kachekov, of him being like, we were hoping, can this be the season where he can be a starting goalie? Because we know Anderson has his health issues, but Kachekov, can he be it? And in the season, I thought we saw a few good games of him being very, very good, but there were also lots of games where he wasn't. So you can label this season as a tale of 2 Kachekovs because he really was like a Jekyll and Hyde type of player. He was either really, really bad or really, really good. And I thought we kind of saw a little bit more bad than the good. And in the playoffs, I mean, he wasn't playing stellar either. I mean, the 2 games that I noticed him was the Florida game in game 3, where obviously he was playing great. He really was playing great in periods 1 and 2, but in that third period, I mean, you got to get saves. And he kind of didn't. He kind of crumbled in the third period. And obviously, in the New Jersey game where we eliminated New Jersey, there were a few goals where I was like, could use a save there. So, because of that strong expectation of him being a starting goalie, my grade is a little bit harsh of him. And my grade is a D for Kachekov. So the next player is Dmitry Orlov. And there are a lot of fans I know, and you're probably one of them listening to this episode, that do not like Orlov. Orlov, so the grade I gave him was, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at a C. Again, he was kind of like Scott Morrow. Like, to me kind of in between a D or a C type of player because he went through one rough stretch, and that was kind of right before the Four Nations, where he was turning the puck over left and right. He was able to recover from that after the Four Nations, but once it got to the end of the playoffs, when it got to the Panthers series, yeah, I mean, in that elimination game, there were a couple plays he made where I was like, dude, you cannot make those plays. And I think one thing that goes against Orlov too, and I would argue probably just a little bit with Brent Burns, is the foot speed. He's not the best skater. So that's why I give Orlov a C there. The next player, defenseman, and Sean Walker. I give him an A. And the reason why, I thought in the regular season, he was fantastic. Again, I think there was one stretch of games, though it was only a few, where both him and Ghost were kind of not doing good. But again, they were able to rebound from that, and they just stayed at that great level. Honestly, that Ghost Walker pair was just freaking awesome. And then I thought Walker, once it playoffs hit, he took it up to another level. I thought he really did. And because of him taking it up to another level, heck, I thought he was kind of on the same par as Jacob Slavin. I thought he was that good. And when he got hurt, again, like with Sheffield, I thought there was a difference on the ice in terms of performance with him not being out on the ice. So that's why I give Walker an A. And boy, I think that contract that we have for him, I think is a $3.6 million contract somewhere in there. I know it's in the 3 millions, but it's for the next 5 years. Boy, is that a steal. So that is great work done by Eric Tulsky by getting Sean Walker in. He has by far been one of my favorite defensemen. The next player, this is a goalie. Now, he never played any playoff games, but he has played quite a few, probably a little bit too many regular season games, and that's Spencer Martin. And I would give him an F if it wasn't for that one Ottawa game where he got a shutout. And trust me, I was happy for him. I thought that was one of the best games in the regular season. But other than that Ottawa game, Spencer Martin was just terrible. Now, here's the thing. I think personality-wise, he's a great human being. Really do. But on the ice, like if you remember those two Florida games back in, I think, what was it, November? Like he was just letting in goals left and right. He was a disaster. And because of that, again, the Ottawa game kept me from giving him an F, but he's at a D because I did not think he played well beyond that Ottawa game. You look at his save percentage, they're like in the 800s to the 850s, and that's just bad numbers. So the next player I have here is a Jacob Slavin. And you guys probably know my favorite player and probably my favorite player of all time. And this is a player where, again, he plays so good. But there are two instances, I thought, where he took it up to another level. And one of the instances, he wasn't really playing for the Hurricanes. He was representing the Hurricanes and obviously his country. But if you saw the Four Nation games with Jacob Slavin, boy, he was a beast. And obviously that probably does come to question with his partner and all that type of stuff, because obviously his partner with playing for US was Brock Faber. Yeah, Brent Burns with Carolina. I know some people are going to take that into question there, but regardless, Slavin, boy, he played amazing in that Four Nations Cup. And another instance where I thought he bumped it up another level was in the playoffs. And honestly, I just think he was just playing freaking fantastic. And honestly, I thought he was probably one of the best defensemen, and he kind of had to be against Florida because he had two rookie defensemen with Morrow and Nikishkin. So I give Slavin an A, and he's the backbone on that D. He goes down, then our defense kind of crumbles. I mean, we kind of saw that. I would say was it a few seasons ago where Slavin was out and we were facing Nashville in the playoffs. We saw a huge difference there. We saw Jake Bean getting big numbers, and I wasn't a big fan of that. So the next player, again, we're getting down to 3 players left here, is Brent Burns. And to me, this is a player, and yes, I'm talking a lot about him in this episode again. This is a player who, in the regular season, I mean, we knew this was a player that has kind of digressed because if you remember last year's playoffs, he started to not do good. And in this past season, we knew his offense just wasn't there anymore. But I thought this was also a player, too, who kind of transformed his game. And he kind of needed to with his offense low. He transformed himself into more of a defenseman type of role. Now, at times, I thought he has played very good in that type of role. But I can see why fans might get frustrated with him because the reason why we brought him in was to get points. So I mean, I understand this dilemma, but again, look at his age. The guy is 40 years old. And the grade I give him, this was tough too. I'm going to give him a C plus, and he's the only player on this that has a plus or minus sign because there were times where he looked really, really rough, turning the puck over quite a bit. I would say more so probably than Orlov, but Burns, again, he doesn't really have that same foot speed as he probably once did 5-10 years ago. Again, he is 40, but at the same time, it does make you wonder, and I'll bring this up again, but I posted a poll about Brent Burns on Twitter. If you don't follow us on Twitter or X, you should because that's where I mainly post polls and all that type of stuff. But the poll was, do you let Brent Burns go to free agency or do you sign him? And the results was 66% wanted him to go to free agency. 34% wanted to sign him. And I think there are 2 roads to this. I think there's one road, I kind of call it the business side of it, where the guy's 40 years old. You know, Father Time's going to catch up to him eventually, and you don't know how Father Time's going to take him either. It could be gradual, or it could be coming off of a cliff. And I think if you look at this past season, there are times where, yeah, he played good, but his play kind of did fall off a cliff because he was turning pucks over left and right. And then to me, there's the other side of it. And that other side is, well, at least he knows Brendan Moore's system. So that's something that's going for him. And you could say, too, well, I mean, the guy's fit. So he probably could play if you give him probably more of a reasonable type of contract, like a 1 year, $1 to $2 million contract. And if he did come back on that type of contract, I'm not going to freak out. But at the same time, I think this is a management team. Again, you look at this management team when it comes to UFAs, the record really isn't that good. I do think both Burns and Orlov go. And I think it's just because of that uncertainty because of his age. And again, I love Brent Burns as a person. I think he is an incredible human being. But I don't think he comes back. That's just my guess. I think Tulsky would rather take someone who, again, doesn't really know Brendan Moore's system. Granted, Brent Burns, when he came over here, it took him quite some time to get into Brendan Moore's system. He eventually did, but it took some time. And Eric Tulsky, he might be eyeing at that approach too. Be like, listen, it might take time to bring in a new defenseman, but we know his potential probably is going to be better than Burns. So that's why again, my opinion, but I think that's the reason why I think Brent Burns does go to free agency. And to me, the last two players are Dustin Tokarski. I gave him a C. He only played a few games. I'm not going to go into great detail on this player. One thing with Tokarski, I do think he was a bit better than Martin, but at the same time, he's not a goalie to me in the NHL. He's not a backup or a starter. So that's pretty much it with Tokarski. The next player and the last player, another goalie, Frederick Anderson. And to be honest, while obviously he got hurt again this season, when he was healthy, he was fantastic. And obviously, there are many that had their doubts heading into the playoffs about how he would play because of his recent playoffs a year ago, his performance. And I was on that train too. I'll admit, I was on that train. I was concerned of, well, probably shouldn't play him as much. Probably should play Kachukov a little bit more. But when Anderson played, he was freaking fantastic. Obviously, you got to the Florida series and things things were going well there. But I think if you look at that series, it didn't show how bad Anderson was. It just showed how good Florida was and the fact that our roster just couldn't compare to Florida's roster. So Anderson, I give him an A. In the playoffs, he was our best player up until the Florida series. And maybe in the Florida series, you could probably still argue maybe he's one of our best players. So that's it for our end of season grades. And remember, if you like this episode and watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. And if you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, whatever, please leave a rating and a review. It really does help us out. So we will see you guys Friday.